Berserker! Alright. Got the static! Alright.
Mossberg Garage. Another midnight session here. Second week of April 2020, in the middle of the viral crisis. Mossberg 500. Here is the, I always have to put a disclaimer. Here's the disclaimer. I don't know anything about Mossbergs. There you go. It's always the same disclaimer, isn't it? Well, I was a Remington 870 guy for the longest time. I got my first shotgun. It was a Remington 870. And I never looked back. I never looked at Mossberg, let's put it that way. I always thought they were kind of cool, but I was just always looking for the certain one. You know, like the certain one didn't jump out at me. And then here you go, boom. This one, it jumped out at me. What can I say? Finally, it happened. So, what is this one? We'll do a little Mossberg history of stuff that I learned 5 minutes ago. Because, like I said, I don't really know anything about Mossberg. But I gotta do a Mossberg video. I did an 870. Gotta do a Mossberg. Everybody's, obviously this coffee is strong. Everybody's all running out to the gun stores now to buy shotguns. They just can't keep the things on the shelves. And all the, even in the anti-gun people are all standing in line. But we can't turn their back on them. We have to embrace them. I think that's the right thing to do. You know, they've seen the light, I suppose. Hopefully. So, what is this thing? I have a date here, approximately 1973. But I have 75 crossed out. So I don't know why. I got to maybe dig into a little bit more research to try to date this freaking thing. Not easy. I think this is like a hodgepodge, just thrown together parts, I'm pretty sure. I think the receiver and the wood match, you know, and the magazine tube, I guess. I think somebody rebarreled this because this is called a Slugster barrel. I'll show you what scrolling is on it. It has a tapped receiver here for like a scope mount and this big button safety on here. So somebody was playing around with different Mossberg stuff. I'm fairly certain. But yeah, so it's takes 2 3/4 and 3-inch shells, this barrel. Here, I'll show you what scrolling is on the barrel. And it's 18.5-inch length. Slugster. Made in the USA, chambered for 2 3/4 and 3-inch shells. 18.5-inch cylinder bore. And what with this regular looking wood, I don't know if this is stock or someone just got that barrel and put it on there. I put the Hungarian AK sling on here because it works perfectly. And this is it says on here, Mossberg 500 AB. So nearest I could tell, AB means let's see, I forgot the actual thing that they broke it down. It was basically that it had 2 action bars. Well, there you go, AB action bars, maybe, I don't know. But they don't all have the dual action bars like this. This one is like built to be a little bit more solid. And there's other shotguns that always have them, like the 870 has two of them all the time. I don't think the Mossberg does. I think this is a special one, the AB that had 2 action bars like that or whatever. I'm pretty sure the one with 1 action bar is plenty strong, though. I wouldn't feel shortchanged if yours only has 1. But let's talk a little bit about Mossberg history here, right here. I'll throw it all down real quick. The real name of the company is O.F. Mossberg and Sons Incorporated. That's really the name of the company. It's not Mossberg. We just call it that for short. Or after all, that is what he puts on here, isn't it? You know, it just says Mossberg. So maybe the older stuff said something different. But guy's been around a long time, man. He was born in 1866 in Sweden. And he died in 1937, Oscar Frederick Mossberg. When he came to the United States in 1886, when he was 20, and went to work at the Ivor Johnson Arms and Cycle Works in Massachusetts. And he was, like a supervisor of their production of revolvers and shotguns and stuff. But he was also a bit of a, inventor here. There's a lot of these patents have his name on it. Here's an Ivor Johnson and a Mossberg patent for the, this is the Ivor Johnson brake action, and he designed they designed the clasp that held it together. And he's got a ton of patents. I'll throw some of them along the bottom of the screen. There's others I have here for breech loading firearms, repeating firearms. I got a whole bunch of Mossberg's patents that I looked through. They're interesting. But he left Ivor Johnson, and he went on to manage a small company, CS Shattuck Arms in Massachusetts. And there he actually helped to design a I think it was called a Unique. And when he was with Shattuck Arms, he designed that. Now it's weird because a lot of people see later on the pistol that broke Mossberg through. Everyone thinks it was the shotguns that were the company's bread and butter, but really what broke the company loose, what they started with, was pistols, and a specific pistol that was called a Brownie. And we'll get to that in a little bit. I might have just thrown a picture of it up here, but wait, we're getting ahead of ourselves. This gun that he helped design for Shattuck Arms, a lot of people think that when he made the Brownie, he was copying that Shattuck gun called the Unique. But the fact of the matter is that it was originally his idea with Shattuck Arms. And he left Shattuck Arms. He went to work for J. Stevens Arms and Tool. And when he was working there for them, he designed on his own now another 4-shot pistol. Now, these 4-shot pistols that he was working with here, like this Shattuck Arms, the pistol that he designed, and he made this thing in a barn behind his house. Him and his sons, they made 500 of these things between 1907 and 1909. He was selling them on his own. No company yet, you know what I mean? He was just doing that on his own. And they followed the same kind of design where it was like, let me see if I could explain this. It was like there were 4, let's say, barrels. They were 4 barrels. So the barrel of the thing looked like this, let's say, right? Right on here. So the barrel looked like this, and inside the barrel were there were really 4 barrels inside that one large barrel, and you would load each one with a .22 caliber cartridge. And then the firing pin was like right here, like this, right? And it went right down the middle like that. So if we were to enlarge this, let's just say, so here's the 4 barrels, it needs to be a little bit bigger. Let's just take, here's the firing pin thing, right? That went down the middle. Now, this firing pin thing had one raised side of it. So if this is what it looked like, there was one raised bump, like say right here on that side of it. And here's the middle of it. So when every time you pulled the trigger, this would rotate, right? So it's kind of like, let's say like a Colt pistol, right? Every time you pull the trigger, the cylinder rotates and the hammer stays in one spot. Well, just imagine if the cylinder stayed in one spot, and every time you pulled the trigger, the hammer would kind of like move through notches. That's kind of like what this thing would do. It was interesting design. It's called Unique when he made it with Shattuck, and it was very unique. So when you would pull the trigger the first time, let's say, that raised part of the firing pin, this whole block that would drop down, would be here, and it would set off this cartridge. Then when you pulled the trigger again, as you were charging it, it was like a revolver, and as you were pulling the trigger and it was charging, this would rotate, say this way. And then when it fell the next time, it would land here. And when you pulled the trigger again, the next time it would land there. And since it's rimfire, it has to hit on the corner. You see what I'm saying? Check it out. There might be some videos on it online if you looked. I didn't really look that much, but I couldn't really find much on it. But fascinating, right? So when he was working for J. Stevens Arms and Tool, he designed one of those, not for Stevens, but for himself, and working out of a barn with his sons, he made 500 of them. In 1914, he left Stevens, and he went to work for Marlin Rockwell. This was right at the beginning of the First World War now. Marlin Rockwell they made machine guns and all kinds of stuff for the war, let's say. So when the war was over, Marlin Rockwell kind of fell apart, because that's what they did, you know, making all the stuff for war, and all of a sudden the war is over. They kind of fell apart. So now Mossberg's unemployed, 53 years old, unemployed, 1919, okay? With his sons, Ivor and Harold, he started a company, O.F. Mossberg and Sons, and what did they make? They made a 4-shot 22 caliber pocket pistol called the Brownie. That was that design, that same design, the one that he made in his barn. And he believed in it that much that this was the pistol that made this company happen. And the way they marketed this thing, really, was very cheap. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm talking to a dead table. At least let me have the Mossberg there. Could be awful boring talking. It's like, yeah, let's listen to this guy talk while we stare at his table. Well, I don't want to get too detailed, but basically, this Brownie thing was really used for hunters and trappers to carry to kill wounded or trapped animals. So that's really what it was marketed for, and there must have been a market for it, because 37,000 of these things were made from 1920 to 1932, and it made the company, basically. And then they went through a bunch of different buildings they were going, and they started making 22s. And Arthur Savage, the son of the owner of Savage Arms, actually designed the 22 for Mossberg. And you know, they just started becoming more and more popular, and getting more and more employees. World War II, they made a whole bunch of parts for like Browning 50 cals and Enfields and stuff like that. So they worked all through the war making parts and making training rifles for the Army and the Navy. And then that was it. Like, they just hung in there, and you know, remained viable in the industry. And this thing wasn't made until 1961. So it's surprising that they were kind of like leaving latecomers into the you know, pump action shotgun game, but this thing really took on. This was designed by a guy, Carl Benson, who was their lead design engineer from around, you know, around the World War II times, the end of World War II to around the early 70s somewhere. And this thing is a forged aluminum receiver, and made for them. This was made for like an entry-level shotgun for like basically cheap. I'm telling you, it was made cheap. That's how they made it. They made it where they didn't have to charge a lot of money. They made it where the manufacturing process was super easy. A very few parts, and they're not built to such close tolerances that they have to be hand fitted and hand put together. You could just take any Mossberg 500, take it apart, take a whole bunch of parts from all different ones, put them all together, and they'll be able to work. They're sloppy, stuff moves around and bangs around, they're all loose and sloppy feeling, but that's what made them work so well, is that these snap caps that I have here, right, they won't cycle through a lot of shotguns that I have just because they're all chewed up and banged up from just years of using them. And shotguns, believe it or not, the shotgun tubes and the feeding systems are very, very precise, and they won't take just they won't just take any shell. They have to be, they can't be dented or dinged or anything like that. And a lot of them, these don't work inside a lot of shotguns. This thing eats them up. It doesn't even matter because it's just built to such loose tolerances like that. But that's what makes it work. It's just super solid, and they made it like an entry-level model, and then bang, that just became their most popular shotgun. So you have a slide release down here, and it's even easier than the 870 because you don't have like a loading, like a what do you call it, a flapper thing here, I don't know what you call that thing, but the lifter, I guess, isn't in the way. There's just nothing here, and you just slap them right in. Very easy to load, and they got, listen to that hammer drop, is gnarly. And just look at these things. They're like bulletproof. They're very strong. They're very strong, and this is one of my midnight sessions here, and I think I just woke everybody up. Or scared away somebody that was breaking in, one or the other. Because yeah, that is scary. That is the quintessential, you know, shotgun sound right there. Let's do it in slow-mo. That's the sound. That is the sound. Prop that up to get rid of the glare. So what else do I have here? Yeah, listen, I'll throw some stuff up on the screen. Just some of his patents here. Right now, the company is owned by, and that was on my yellow paper. So his great-great-grandson, I forgot his name, but he's the CEO now. His great-great-grandson. And his great-grandson just recently, like, well, I don't know about recently, but here's a picture of them both. But he's gone already. The older guy there, I think, is gone. And it's that younger guy there that is now the CEO, the great-great-grandson. So this is the oldest arms manufacturer that's still in, you know, still the same people, the same owners, same family still owning it. Is the oldest gun manufacturer now. Like that. So that's definitely something to be proud of. And I'm sorry I waited so long, you know, to get one of these. But this is what I wanted. I wanted short barrel. I wanted like rifle sights on there. I wanted, and it's not easy. These are always very tactical, kind of, you know, pistol grip, you know, tactical breaching choke kind of things with all kind of heat shields and stuff all over them. That just seems to be what people are into with these Mossbergs. But I wanted one that was exactly like this. I mean, this is what I was looking for. I wanted sling swivels. I wanted something that you know, you could throw over your shoulder and carry when you're camping, where you could fire buckshot through it, like just for, you know, protection from large wild game that might attack you or something like that, or something that could reach out a little bit that you could have fun with shooting it like a rifle. I kind of like that setup with shotguns, you know what I mean? I had my 1100, my Remington 1100 set up that way for a while with a Hastings barrel, and I really loved it. And that's my configuration with that gun that I love the most. And you know, in this one, it just came with a couple of like extras, like the safety button was kind of, I don't really like the tang safety, but with this big button, it was kind of interesting. I guess I could tolerate it. I like that weird 70s bolt design there. You know, it kind of looks like the stickers that you'd put on your notebook. And the dual action bars is kind of cool. The wood is nice. And I made it mine. So, you know, if you're looking for a shotgun for home defense, now that, you know, you got the bug because of what's going on lately, notice that shotgun videos must be doing pretty good. It really just is a coincidence that I had one for the 870 and this one going, and I even got another one on scheduled. But it comes at a good time because people now are interested in getting one of these things for self-defense. Are they good for home defense, you know? And they are. Shotguns are definitely good for home defense. I want to thank Beers Zerker. And I want to thank you for tuning in. See you later.
Music, yeah!